Do we have danger of meteorites? You better believe it. Quite a few of them. Listen, here's what you'll see in the future. You ready? You're going to, I don't know, well, it's not going to be hard to see, but we're going to be dealing with a lot of soot. A lot of soot. Burnt materials like tar from roofing. Right? A lot of black smoke. You're going to be dealing with certain highways that are, you just can't use anymore. Cracked highways. They're going to be all over the place. It's almost impossible to tell exactly where these particles are going to really hit. There'll be a difference in the sea. Hardly anybody's going to be. People are going to be afraid to go to the coastlines. They're going to be afraid to live on the coast, period. You're going to have an aggravation event also. Listen, there was a time, I spent time in a place where it kept having tornadoes, right? 1 week a tornado would come. Then you know, everything would die down. Another week a tornado would come and everything would die down. Another week a tornado would come. And it kept doing that. It did that to the point where you get wore down from worry because you don't know about your own preparations, right? Then you get to the point when you've dealt with that type thing for so long, you get to the point where you prepare yourselves as best you can, but you don't live your life in this free state because you realize that everything is temporary, especially when you live in a place that's under threat. Can you imagine being bombarded by debris every week? Can you imagine having your roof redone and then 2 days later, your roof is gone again? Can you imagine having your car totally torn to shreds by impacts over and over and over again? Can you imagine living in that type of environment where you're constantly trying to worry about your possessions, your safety, your shelter, and things become a bit, unstable? Can you imagine the pressure upon people like that? This is why God says it is not a good time for anybody, for no one. That's why he also said only a fool asks for the day of the Lord, because there's no good in the day of the Lord for anybody. Now, the day of the Lord is not one day, it's a time period, right? The day of the Lord is a time period, but it's a time period that's echoed back in history. This just happens to be the time when the Messiah came, meaning it's the last time. But you're looking at a bunch of things happening over and over again until people are really worn out, right? They're severely worn out, right? Somebody says, let me see, I saw Hive in there. There's a question, does Mike know about the Internet of Bodies and the Hive net? And people, do they targeted by technology? And what can people do that are targeted by technology? You need not hide from technology. You don't need to do that. Can technology influence your thoughts and your behaviors? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why do you think I could do a demonstration with you guys, but it would be unorthodox. I would have to give a couple of people the evidence first and then do the test so they can present the evidence that will match it perfectly. In other words, you can be programmed through electronics. Through any presentation, you can be programmed. You can be set up to fail. The stock market works that way, by the way. If you were to ever look at the stock market, I can almost guarantee you that you would invest your money at a time interval that's been designed for you to throw your money away into. You would never make a dime off the stock market the first time because you're working with these preset of visuals. You're going to see it a certain way, and therefore you're going to react a specific way. And it's so funny that about 90% of people who go into the stock market do the exact same thing. And they lose money because they're programmed to do that. Why? Because they trust what they see. That's the key. If you trust what you see, you're effectively programmed by what you see. Now, let me ask you this. How many people, this will really get you. So all you academics in there, do you trust what you've been taught? Because you did not teach yourself. Somebody else taught you. And whoever taught you about something somebody else wrote. So let me ask you this. Do you trust your academics? Do you trust what you've been taught? Can anybody answer that? I'm talking about those who have a degree, those who are well-versed in a variety of subjects and somewhat qualified subjects. Do you trust your degrees? Do you trust academia? That's one of those gotcha questions. Because if a person comes out and says, well, no, I don't trust it, I'll say, well, why do you utilize it all the time? Why are you utilizing academia, right? And that the historical proof shown to you in that setting, right? To enter into conversations about spiritual things. And then if you say, well, no, I don't trust it, or I do trust it, I'll say, well, so you trust the writings of somebody else's thoughts and concepts. You trust somebody else's thoughts and concepts above what? Then you have a comparison deal. In other words, listen, academia is nothing more than mastering what man has given man. Academia, that's what it is. From language, right? We can exclude mathematics, the basic mathematics, not this other types, but we can exclude that. The rest of it is nothing more than mastering the knowledge of men. That's it. That's what it is, right? A computer scientist, a doctor, whatever the case is, you're mastering the knowledge of men, right? But who's going to master the knowledge of God given by the power of the Holy Spirit? By the Holy Spirit. Notice I made that distinction because I always make that distinction. You can learn the Bible, right, yourself without the Holy Spirit. I promise you, you're going to have it wrong. But with the Holy Spirit, you're going to see, which causes you to realize you don't know much. But you'll also be free of a great many burdens. You won't carry a burden. The only burden you'll truly carry is your heart of compassion for somebody else. But you won't be under a grave amount of stress anymore. That's for certain.